So let's talk about what Dodge v Ford Motor Company actually stands for. And yes, the Dodge here does stand for the Dodge brothers, the owners of a rival car company that would today become Stellantis. In the early 1900s, they were investors in Ford Motor Company, and they sued Ford because Ford stopped paying them a special dividend. So there are a few reasons why I say this case doesn't stand for shareholder primacy. First of all, the timing of it. It came out in 1919, smack dab in the middle of the Lochner era. If you don't know what the Lochner era is, it was a period of time where the courts used their judicial power to enforce free market capitalism or laissez-faire capitalism, basically what the Republicans want to take us back to. And they used this power to strike down any sort of regulation, from 40-hour work weeks to union rights to child labor, all under the guise that it violated the freedom of contract. But it's not just the timing of this case, it's also where it came from. This case is a Michigan Supreme Court case, which means it's only binding in other Michigan courts. So how did it become such a nationally important case? Well, you can thank Milton Friedman and Ronald Reagan for digging it up to support their supply-side economic theory that we all now know doesn't work. But it's not just context clues, it's also the language of the case itself. So the Dodge brothers made a whole bunch of claims in court trying to get the court to order Ford to pay them a special dividend. The first claim they made was that the company was too large, that it couldn't be worth any more than $50 million. And to the extent the company was worth more than $50 million, it had to pay out all that excess to the shareholders. And the court said, no, that's not the case. That $50 million cap is the initial capitalization of the company. It's not a limit on how large the company can get once it's in production. Ford had intended to use some of the profits it wasn't paying to shareholders to invest in the smelting plant, thus driving down the cost of the car and hiring more people to work at the smelting plant. So then the Dodge brothers argued that this was ultra vires, or outside the authority of the corporation. The corporation's job was to make cars, not smelt iron. And the court poo-pooed that as well and said, no, this is part of making a car. If they want to do things that are ancillary to making a car, that is fine. The Dodge brothers then tried to argue, look, if the board of directors voting to use these profits to invest in the smelting plant doesn't violate the company's own documents, it surely violates the antitrust laws because Ford will then be too large. And the court said there's no evidence of this, and antitrust doesn't prevent companies from getting large, it just prevents them from not competing. And the court even said, accordingly, the directors may, in the fair exercise of their discretion, invest profits to extend and develop the business, and a reasonable use of the profits to provide additional facilities for the business cannot be objected to or enjoined by the stockholders. This is the business judgment rule, that as long as there's a reasonable basis for a company's board of directors' decision, that decision is going to be fine and shareholders can't object to it. And so Ford won on every argument it made in this case, and the Dodge brothers got exactly the relief they wanted. Why? Because the court essentially said, Ford, you're right, but you have too much money, and we feel it's arbitrary for you to not give this money to your shareholders, so we're going to order you to pay your shareholders this special dividend. And that case is what shareholder value is based on.